All right, last day.
Woo woo.
Woohoo! It's going to be great. But this has been so much fun. Everyone who's joining us today, really thank you guys for joining, especially on a Friday. It's what everyone wants to do on a Friday is come watch a virtual conference, right? So Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of Kuli Kuli. Kuli Kuli is the first company to sell moringa food products in the US. Moringa is a really cool plant, more nutrient dense than kale, and we source it from women's co-ops in West Africa and recently also Haiti as well.
Exciting. Now, I know you and I have talked about Moringa. Lisa will be joining me on a podcast episode that will air in about a month or two. So we've gone through this and you've kind of educated me in all the really cool aspects. But I'm guessing that most of the people joining us today have never heard of this new superfood.
Yeah, so it's definitely new to a lot of people. Moringa is a tropical tree, so people don't often think of eating tree leaves, but it's a really cool plant. The leaves of this tree provide a complete protein similar to quinoa or meat, so it's great for vegetarians and vegans. It's also really high in calcium, iron, vitamin A, and vitamin C. And the most exciting thing that I found working in the Peace Corps is that this plant naturally grows all across the world, everywhere from Africa to India to the Philippines, Haiti, and it really thrives in hot, dry climates. So it grows in places where not a lot of other stuff grows. So it's perfect to be used in the developing world to help combat malnutrition.
Now, we're going to talk a lot about your time in the Peace Corps, how you got introduced to this, but Benjamin brought up a great thing that hit me up with this. And you actually have some really exciting news today. So all of these products that you're creating with Moringa, where can people get them?
Yeah, so they are sold in Whole Foods nationwide.
This week.
It's very exciting. Yeah, they're rolling out right now as we speak, literally this week. So check. I would say by in the next 2 weeks, by sort of the beginning of February, they should be on every shelf in every Whole Foods nationwide. And if you don't see it there, you should ask them if they have moringa, just to show you what this will look like. So it's a energy shot. It's kind of like a cross between a green juice and a cup of coffee. So it has caffeine equivalent to a cup of coffee from green tea, and then half a cup of leafy greens of moringa. So you're getting all those like good green benefits. And then we're also launching our moringa powder, which I can.
Oh, we're going on a trip.
I love going on a trip. This is our office. This is all the box.
Behind the scenes, you guys.
Stuff shipping out.
Right here. Journey to Social Entrepreneurship, only found here.
This is our powder.
Oh,
so we
cool.
sell it in little packets and then also in a big tub of it. So yeah, it's launching as we speak.
Now, you guys, I highly, highly recommend that you find Kuli Kuli on Instagram and follow them because they post all the really cool and unique ways that you can use this powder. Because I have to admit, I had no idea what to do with it. So what are some of the things that you guys do with this powder? I mean, I've seen ice cream. I've seen
Yeah, so many different options. I mean, the cool thing about moringa is that one little serving, so 10 grams, like a rounded tablespoon, is equivalent to a full serving of vegetables. So we sell them in these little packets. It's $1.99, not that expensive. And you can just dump it into your smoothie, is what a lot of people do. You can also add it to like pestos. We've had a lot of people make like baked goods with it because it makes them, healthier, but it also turns them green, which is sort of fun.
You guys gotta have a big month coming up. I'm sure March will be great.
Tuesday, yeah, exactly.
Great. So what type of flavor can people anticipate when they add this powder to their cookies or to their smoothies or to their ice cream? I'm serious. I saw an ice cream on there.
It's on there. We've done it all. I mean, we haven't, but our customers make a lot of different things. It's kind of tastes like green tea matcha. So it's sort of green, earthy, has kind of like almost a smoky flavor to it. So we do tell people that, it will taste green, like you are eating a green. So it's not, it's not going to taste like candy bar, but, a lot of people think, it blends really well with things that are already green. So if you think of like green smoothies, pestos, guacamole, places where our taste buds sort of naturally expected to taste slightly greener.
So one of the comments that I have to share, Benjamin, who's been an amazing guest all week, says, "I think I just salivated on my keyboard."
I want to see pictures.
Benjamin, are you so glad you showed up today on your Friday to learn about this incredible food? Yeah, and so the interesting thing about this is that you actually had no idea what moringa was when you left the United States to go on your Peace Corps term of service.
Yeah, no. So I was, you know, hadn't heard of it before. I joined the Peace Corps in Niger, West Africa. Was in a small rural village, no electricity, no running water, very simple living, and found that one of the challenges I had is, as a vegetarian, I wasn't eating meat, obviously, and there wasn't really a lot else to eat. So I was mostly eating beans and rice and millet. So I wasn't getting a lot of protein or iron in my diet, or many vitamins. And so a couple of the people I was working with at the health center told me to start eating moringa. And I did a little research on it, and there's so much research behind this plant. And it's one of the most nutrient dense plants on the planet. So I started eating it, and it made me feel better. And I was like, why isn't everyone else eating this? This plant is amazing. I need to share this with the world and find a way to help people. And I saw a comment from Benjamin. Yes, you get 50% of your iron in one serving.
Serious iron. It's not just a little bit of iron. There's it's got some power. I mean, it could be, the tree's like pumping iron.
Yeah, yes, the tree pumps iron.
So what's really fascinating is you were in this community and they have this incredible superfood that's just sitting there. But most of the culture towards this food is that it was not good to eat, or that it was, it's not what people ate. And so can you tell us a little bit about that dynamic of, as you've reached out to the communities to teach them about this amazing food that literally was growing right in their backyard?
Yeah, so I think it's like the way we used to think about kale like 5 years ago. People were like, I don't really want to eat it unless I have to eat it because it's kind of green. I'm not sure I like it.
It's pretty darn green.
Right. And so I found that, in working with a lot of women in my village and trying to encourage them to grow more moringa and use it more in, everything from their stews to the porridge they make in the morning for their kids. Their big piece of feedback is why are we going to spend our time cultivating a crop that we can't sell? And that really stuck with me. So when I got back to the US after Peace Corps, I was like, well, maybe I can try to create a market here in the US, and in doing so help to support these women in West Africa. And so that's what we've been doing since 2011. It's been a while. So it started off as a side project, and it's now my full-time job.
Which is a huge milestone. I mean, throughout the entire week, we've had people who are side hustling. They really got that side hustle on. They're building the project to other people like yourself. And also, I mean, it's been a good even mix that this is now their full job, and they've, kind of made it. So what was that journey like once you got back to the US to build the company to where it could be your full-time job?
Yeah, it was definitely hard. So I was working at a solar finance. I was working at a solar finance company for about 2.5 years after I got out of the Peace Corps, and I just was working on Kuli Kuli on the side. And at a certain point, it was like, I can't do both anymore. This is killing me. And Kuli Kuli was growing super fast, and I really wanted to throw myself into it and make it grow. So I quit my day job and wasn't able to get a salary again for about 9 months, which is definitely challenging because coming out of Peace Corps and then working at a startup doesn't really give you a ton of runway. So I ended up doing consulting, doing sort of like side jobs here and there, and just did whatever I could to make it work until we were able to grow enough and raise some money, and I could pay myself a little bit. So it took a while, but we've gotten there.
Now, what's really fascinating is you actually went very much the investor side, kind of seeking out investment, going after grants. Now, that probably stemmed a little bit from your background in finance, that you went that route. Can you tell us about some of your journey going through there?
Yeah. I mean, for us, just, manufacturing runs, like every time we do a manufacturing run, we drop anywhere from like $50,000 to $100,000 on that manufacturing run alone. So running a food business is a pretty capital intensive endeavor. So most companies do raise money in some form, whether that's a bank loan or if that's, friends and family money or their personal money or like outside investors. So for us, we did kind of a combination of like crowdfunding money, plus we got some grants along the way, and then we raised a fair amount from angel investors as well. So it's been a bit of a hodgepodge, but it's worked out.
Well, we are very excited to have you now available nationwide in Whole Foods. That is such a really cool accomplishment.
Thank you.
Now, I do want to go back to your service. You were placed in Rwanda, correct?
Niger.
I was close.
Same continent.
So you were placed in Niger. And you actually weren't able to complete the entire term of service because of an Ebola outbreak, correct?
So I think you're thinking of someone else who I know who makes bags, which are awesome. But not Ebola. There was a terrorist attack.
Okay.
So,
but you did have a short term of service, right?
I did have a short term of service. I was only there for 7 months.
So yeah, the second, and it's oddly enough, the founder of Three Twins Ice Cream, another food product, he was only able to serve 9 months, and it was also because of a terrorist attack. So how did even just a short term of service kind of change and impact your life?
So I know Neil from Three Twins, and I think in some ways having a short term of service makes you sort of feel like you didn't finish it, and so you have to kind of finish it when you get back. I think a lot of us have that feeling. But in terms of how the service in general impacted, I mean, there's no way I would be doing what I'm doing without it. Like Kuli Kuli would never exist. And I think for me, just like living, like one of the things I really like about Peace Corps, and I think, AmeriCorps and a lot of programs do this really well, is that you actually live at the same level with the people that you're trying to serve. So, I had no running water or electricity, and I was living in a mud hut in a rural village, and like was making $75 a month. So I was not balling out by any means. And I think you get a much better understanding of like what it's actually like to live in absolute poverty when you're pretty close to living in it in yourself. And then you can kind of understand, okay, what is my role in helping, or, what do the people here need from me? Like, how can I best be of assistance?
So when you kind of transitioned into that role, what was one of the biggest misconceptions you found?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of being white in an African country is everybody thinks that you're going to give them money, and that you have, that you're sort of from the aid community and that you can write checks and build schools and all of that. So I think you get a lot initially of people being like, oh, well, will you build me this thing? Will you do this thing for me? And it's Peace Corps is very much, they actually don't let you apply for grants for the first 6 months because they really want you to like get to know the community and really figure out like what is actually what this community needs and do a whole needs assessment before you actually start trying to build anything. So the idea is like, don't build monuments, like build people up.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And especially the fact that you really have to understand the core issues before you start working for ways to apply them. I've actually never heard of Peace Corps members applying for grants before. Is this something that's fairly common?
Yeah, it's pretty common. They're smaller grants for sure. And generally like through the Peace Corps funding, there's a couple of different opportunities. It's not so much like outside grants, but it is something that a lot of PCVs do.
Cool. But you would have had to have left shortly after that period would have opened when you've been able to do that.
I left. So it was really sad. Like the day we got evacuated, I was putting the final touches on my grant proposal that was all about moringa and trying to develop out a moringa garden in the health center and then also sell some of that moringa in the local city. So I just basically had to scrap it and try to do it from the US side instead.
So how different is your current company from the grant that you were trying to write?
Pretty different. I think these things evolve quite a bit, like both with grant proposals or business plans, you know. So that grant proposal, then actually directly after getting evacuated out of Niger, I didn't know what to do, didn't know where I was going. So I moved to India. And while I was in India, I worked for a social impact investment firm. And so then I kind of was exposed to this idea of social enterprise. And so then that grant proposal turned into like a bit small business proposal, or a business plan, which I submitted to a competition and didn't win, but I got like some finalist award, which was sort of enough to keep me going.
This is
But
validated.
it was validated somewhat, which is funny. I looked at it recently because, you know, it's now 5.5 years old or something, and it so much has changed. I mean, I think the core idea and like the motivation behind it has stayed the same, of sourcing from women farmers, but we switched from, you know, Niger. We couldn't get enough moringa and enough quantity to actually be able to export, so we moved to Ghana, sourcing from women in Ghana, partnering with a local nonprofit. That sort of stayed the same, manufacturing in country. So we wanted to manufacture in Africa because that creates even more impact. And a company that's doing that really well is Madagascar Chocolate. But for us, there wasn't a factory that already existed, and we didn't have millions of dollars to create a factory. So that changed. There's a lot of things that change as you actually start creating whatever you're going to create.
Now, some of the times when these companies are actually creating, starting, the fact that you're limited with your options and you just don't have a ton of money to invest actually creates a more sustainable foundation. Have you found that to be true with your efforts?
Absolutely. I mean, we started this company with $3,000. And so we had to be really scrappy. And, you know, we did a lot of consumer testing at farmers markets was how we did a lot of our initial validation, and then Indiegogo. And I think it forces you to really think about what you're doing and spend a lot of time planning, because every dollar is precious. So you can't just like, you know, I'm going to, you know, I've got $50,000. I'm going to go make something tomorrow. You know, and not actually take the time to validate if the thing that you're making is something that people actually want to buy.
That's such a great advice. Now, I'm kind of curious, now that we have me on the right country, I apologize.
That's okay.
In Ghana, as you're kind of helping to cultivate a little bit of a market, what changes have you seen in those communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put out the disclaimer that like we really, really want to do like a full academic study and have like good quantitative data. Right now we have a lot of qualitative data, which is like, you know, the things that people tell you when you visit them and speak with them and interview them. And all of that has been great. So we're working with about 500 women in northern Ghana. We've planted about 200,000 moringa trees. Many of these women are making 5 to 10 times the average income. So they're making significantly more selling moringa than selling any other crop that they grow. And, you know, a lot of them talked about how they've become moringa fans themselves. They're like putting it into their family's meals. They're feeding it to their kids. We've worked a little bit with a nonprofit to get it into some school feeding programs locally, so that it's getting out there in the diet. And just, I think it's really, probably the coolest thing was when I went back to Ghana for the first time and brought our bars, and they had, you know, been told that, this moringa is going to the US and it's being turned into bars and they're like selling it there, but they hadn't actually seen the real thing. And it was like Christmas had come early. Everybody was so excited to like see the bars and be like, wow, we created these, like this is something that we grew and we made. And they were just so proud. And I think anything that you can do to like work with people in a way that makes them feel proud of what they've accomplished, as opposed to, you know, you just feeling proud of like, oh, well, I gave out a bunch of shoes or I gave out a bunch of bars and now I feel really proud, but the people who received it don't necessarily feel the same way. I think it's great to have situations where you can provide a win-win.
Oh, that, I mean, definitely the social enterprise aspect is just really, really spot on. My co-host has a great question. How do you control how do you quality control the crop?
Oh yeah, it's an ongoing effort. So we spend a lot of money on lab tests, I think is the short answer. We test everything before it leaves the country, but we test it again when it arrives in the US. And then we test it actually a third time when it's in our final finished product.
Now, when you're testing it, what exactly are you looking for?
We're looking at bacteria levels. We're looking at if there are any traces of anything that might, be just cause like E. coli, salmonella, like all of the things that you really don't want in your food.
We, as the consumers, appreciate that.
Yeah. So, and we do it a lot because we have to, and then also because we found that, like sourcing from Africa is an interesting psychological effect. We get a lot of people like, oh my gosh, can like during the whole Ebola crisis, people were asking if there was Ebola in our bars or like all sorts of stuff, which I just won't go into because it was so frustrating. But I think that, there's still a reputational problem with products sourced from Africa. And so we have the highest of the high standards so that we can just, tell everyone like, this is the safest thing you can eat. Like there's, if you want us to send it, we can send you all the lab reports. You can review them yourselves. Like we've tested it all. It is all good.
Now, I obviously have never run a food company or brought products in from Africa. What kind of what are the customs things? What are some of the other actual physical challenges of getting the product here to your manufacturers?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges in working in the developing world in general is that just everything tends to take longer than you think it will. So like the harvest is slower than you thought it will be. The rains don't come. There's just like a lot of things that just don't move on sort of the American time schedule. So just allocating time for those things to happen and making sure that we have enough supply so that we're never out of stock on our shelves here in the US.
That sounds like something it was definitely learned over time.
It is. It's been a uphill learning curve.
So were there times that perhaps you didn't quite have the supply that you needed kind of stocked up?
Yeah. So last year we went from 200 stores to about 600 stores in the span of like 3 months. And that was both really exciting and really challenging from a supply chain perspective because it meant that we were, we weren't out of stock to the point where we got kicked off shelves. But we were low on stock and there were shelves that did not have product that should have been having product.
That's definitely something I had never even considered of, there's a lot of different mutual trust here. You have your supply chain, you were also part of the supply chain working with Whole Foods that your product's going to be there. And that's been a very great relationship to have. So that must have been a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging because I think for any retailer, they never want vacant space on their shelf because that's lost income where they could be selling something else. So we've just been really active in communicating with them, and they've been really good at making sure that they don't kick us off, which we appreciate. So question, how many employees do we have? So we employ a pretty grassroots marketing strategy. So right now we have a lot of people who work for us kind of on a part-time basis all across the country. So we have 15 people who are brand ambassadors, meaning they like pass out samples and sort of just represent our product at different events. And then we have 50 sales reps who are all, work for us and then work for other brands as well and help sell us into stores, that kind of thing. And then here in the office, there's just 4 of us. So we're a relatively small core team.
Now, in the office, what are those positions that you have there?
Basically, operations, sales. We have a tech person and we have a designer.
I'm sure you guys all wear many hats throughout the day.
We all wear many hats, but those are kind of the big divisions of labor.
Awesome. Now I want to go back to this relationship with Whole Foods because recently you guys had a really unique, cool partnership where Whole Foods actually came to worked with you to develop the idea for a new product line. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we had an opportunity. It actually started with a nonprofit in Haiti who had been working with the Clinton Foundation. And so they had just done a study of moringa in Haiti and the potential for that being a really good export crop for Haiti. And they found that the potential is very high. So they contacted us. So both this nonprofit in Haiti and then the Clinton Foundation sort of reached out to us saying, are you interested in this? And we said yes, but we didn't want to just have it be like, moringa that we put into our current product line. We thought it'd be cool to build a product, which ended up being these energy shots that like really helps tell the story of Haiti. So we then went to Whole Foods and say, we have this amazing opportunity to work with the Clinton Foundation, to work with smallholder farmers in Haiti and, really help reforest the island, support farmers, do this really cool stuff. Like, what product should we create? And they really liked the idea of an energy shot. And so then we co-created it with them. And it was this amazing partnership between like, a really large Fortune 500 company, a huge foundation, a really small nonprofit in Haiti, and a very small startup in the US. And we all sort of made it work. But it's been great.
Well, that's a great testament to Whole Foods that when they develop their relationships, that they're also very invested in them, and just really great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and they're an amazing company. I think they don't get enough credit for the extent that they have literally created the market for healthy and organic foods. Everyone else is jumping on board now, but like Whole Foods started that.
Great. Well, at this time, if there are any audience questions, we'd love to hear them. I am going to turn back to this idea of service a little bit. And what are some skills that you learned on, a very short term of service, again, that you didn't learn in school?
I was a politics and environmental studies major, so I learned nothing really about business.
But here you are today.
But here I am running a successful business. I think probably the biggest things I've learned as an entrepreneur is to just ask for things. So I do a lot of asking for advice, even to people who I think won't respond. I still ask. Never hurts to ask. I do a lot of like asking for funding, asking for partnerships, and really dreaming big and then asking on those dreams, because you never know until you try, and the worst you can get is a no. So just always asking.
That is such a great model, and that's actually with my podcast one that I've been employing this year is if you never ask, then you'll never know, and it kind of eats inside of you if you don't ask. You're like, right, well, what if?
Right.
So what is one of the cool things from asking that has kind of created? There's probably a lot of different things, but can you give us an example of maybe a long shot that you took that kind of came through?
Yeah. So there's this kind of famous investor out of Boulder named Brad Feld. And he basically sort of created the tech industry in Boulder, and he is also an investor. And like I've read his books, I've read his blog, and I was reading his blog, and he was like talking about some food stuff. And I was like, man, it would be so cool if Brad Feld invested in us. Like, there's no way he will respond, but I like found his email on LinkedIn. And I emailed him and I said, I love your stuff. I would love to tell you more about my product. Can I send you some samples? This is what I'm doing. And he said yes. And then he ended up becoming one of our largest investors. What? So it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Never hurts to ask.
Never hurts to ask. No.
So our last question for today is, what advice do you have for somebody who's starting out early on their journey and they really want to make a positive impact?
Yeah, I think start small and refine as you go. Because I think a lot of people get really, in their head and, oh man, I have to do all these things and this is such a long process. But just taking small steps towards this bigger goal will help you get there a lot faster in the long run. And it'll also, if you take small steps and then refine as you go, like maybe your original vision might change a little bit for the better, because none of this happens overnight.
No change from that initial grant that you were filling out when you were about to get evacuated from a country to this incredible country, or this incredible. I need one of those energy shots. I actually meant to go buy one
through the computer.
I won't touch it, but it'll help make this incredible company that you have created today. Lisa, thank you so much for such an amazing, amazing session and for joining us. I know this was a busy week for you. You guys are launching nationwide. So
yeah, well, thanks for having me. And yeah, look for us on the shelves of your local Whole Foods.
And if you don't see them, go and ask.
Yeah, it helps a lot. It really does. Just saying like, hey, I heard about this cool moringa thing. Where is it? I need my moringa.
Right? I need all that iron that I'm getting. And
yeah, it never hurts to ask. Exactly.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. And have a great weekend.